Yeah, my name is Mario. As I mentioned a minute ago, I'm in this weird transition period. I just took the bar exam a couple weeks ago, and so I'm starting work on Tuesday, but I can't technically call myself a lawyer until I'm licensed. Um, so as far as Poe goes, I bought an anthology back in 2016, and I think the first thing I read was The Black Cat. At that point, I hadn't read The Raven, I hadn't read anything famous yet, and I just started with The Black Cat. I loved it. I don't think I read The Raven maybe until like a year later. I was really into the short stories. I think I did The Black Cat first and then The Gold Bug second. Later, I got into the poems, and when I read The Raven, that's when I absolutely like just fell in love with the writing, and like I'm sure a lot of people have. And that prompted my entry into this competition, The Serpent. The poem is called The Serpent. I started writing this back in 2017. I wrote like a really sloppy first draft. And after studying The Raven some more, I realized that although the poem, like I guess, sounded okay to maybe an untrained ear, I was not following the rhyming and meter conventions that Poe used. And so I took a step back and I really just tried to understand how The Raven was written from a mechanical sense in terms of the meter in the rhyme scheme. I wrote this poem called The Serpent, which is about a man who, unlike the narrator in The Raven, who's, this Lenore person was presumably, dead or lost. The narrator, the Serpent, feels as though he was betrayed by this character. So there's already like a thematic inverse between the Raven and the Serpent. And while the Raven deals with like loss and mourning and sorrow, the Serpent turns all of that on its head, and it's more about like vengeance and anger. There are two works that I've either attempted and or finished. So one was The Imp of the Perverse, which was a really cool like short story that had like an essay of like human nature embedded in it. I tried doing something very similar in a short story format. That will probably never see the light of day, but I have tried it. And then the other poem I really like is Ulaloom. I've started that one. I haven't gotten very far in it, but if I were to pick up anything, it would definitely be either like returning to the Imp of the Perverse poem that I'm working, or short story I'm working on, or finishing the Ulaloom inspired poem I'm working on. As far as following me goes, I don't really use social media, so you can't really follow me on social media very well. Eventually, I would like to write more, maybe get an author's website, but for now, there's no way to follow me. Aside from like maybe a LinkedIn, if you can find that on the internet somewhere. But so that poem was published by a press called, I don't want to screw their name up. I think Quoth the Raven Press, and it was published in a volume called Evermore 4. And so if you go to Amazon, for instance, and type in Evermore 4, you should be able to find that volume pretty easily. As far as my work in general, I've also written a collection of children's poetry that if you want to check out, it's not macabre and it's not Poe related whatsoever, but if you need a break from all the dark stuff, you can check that out. That's called The Tempest Lullaby. You can find that on Amazon. I have a red cover with a wizard in front of it, just children's poems and riddles. I'm going to give you a little palate cleanser from all the death macabre of Poe, if you want.